Welcome to Pagan Perspective. This is Subs Week. I'm Tara, your Tuesday Subs Week host, and this week's topic is about honoring non-pagan ancestors. So the person who's asking the question for this week had a relative pass away, and they don't think they would have approved of their pagan path. They're wanting to honor that relative on Samhain, but they're not sure whether it would be disrespectful to the person that they're trying to honor. I think this is a really good question, and it's definitely worth thinking about. I don't think there are any universal answers to this question, but I do think that there are some things that are worth considering while trying to make your decision. You really need to take into account all the possibilities of how you can honor that person, and then consider which you're most comfortable with and which seems most appropriate based on what you know about that person and also what you know about your own beliefs. The first thing to consider, I think, is what you know of that person when they were alive. If you know that they didn't approve of paganism and pagan rituals, there's still the possibility that they might have been the sort of person that can look beyond that and see and appreciate your actual intentions. Hypothetically, imagine that you don't approve of someone's religion. Perhaps you think that it's bad for them and that there will be negative consequences for them participating in it, and because you love them and you care about them, you don't want them to go through that. Then imagine that there's a holiday in this religion that comes up, and on this holiday, all of the members of the religion are supposed to give a gift to the people that they love. And perhaps you don't approve of this holiday, and maybe you don't even approve of the gifts that they give. But say that this person who's a part of this religion gives you this gift on that holiday. Do you A, refuse the gift because you don't like the religion and don't encourage them or think that it's evil or something? Or B, appreciate the fact that this person giving you a gift on that day is their way of showing you that they love you? This might be kind of a bad hypothetical scenario because I know most of us would probably go with B, and yet a lot of people in the actual scenario that this is supposed to correspond to actually go with A. But the point is, you need to think whether this relative that you want to honor is the sort of person who would go with option B. Would they be able to see through to the fact that you bringing them up on this day or in this ritual is your way of telling them that you love them and that you want to remember them and honor them? Or do you think they would be too hung up on the actual holiday, religion, or ritual in which this was being carried out? If you decide that they were the sort of person in life that would be hung up on those kind of things, there is still other possibilities for why you might think that it's a good idea. That brings me to the second part of things that I think are worth considering in answering this question for yourself. This is the part where you have to consider your own beliefs. You have to consider what you think happens when people die. If you believe in souls and you believe in the afterlife, then you have to consider, do people's perspectives change after they die? You might believe that in the afterlife people's perspectives aren't so constricted by things like fear and prejudice. You might believe that they no longer disapprove of your religion. Obviously, because they're your own beliefs, there's going to be a bias there. But I do think that if you believe in the afterlife and you believe in souls, it's not really all that far out there to believe that people's perspectives change when they die. You might believe that this person as a soul after death is actually more capable of understanding and appreciating your intentions. If you're more like me and you don't believe in an afterlife or in souls, then you might just have to consider what feels the most respectful and comfortable and right to you. You also have to consider, though, that there's not just one way that you have to honor your ancestors. And you don't have to honor all of your ancestors the same way. You can honor your ancestors on Samhain without necessarily honoring them within the context of a specific ritual that you might think offends them. The more thought and effort you put into honoring a specific person in a way that seems the most appropriate for them and for your relationship with them, the more you'll probably get out of it and the more powerful the experience will be. You might want to consider meeting that person halfway. One thing that you could do is show respect for that person's beliefs and traditions by honoring them in the way that they would honor the dead. You could go to that person's grave if they have one, and possibly decorate it with flowers. You could go to a cathedral and light a candle for them. You could look through old photos of them. You could listen to their favorite song. You could share stories about them. If there are people you know who weren't lucky enough to ever meet them, you could tell them about them. You could buy or make something that reminds you of them and then dedicate it to them, and then leave it out to remind you of them always. If there's a place that you two used to always go together, you could go there on Samhain. Or if there's something that you always used to do with them, you could do that and think of them. There are lots of things that aren't specific to paganism that you could do to honor someone on Samhain. It is also possible that the best way of showing them honor and respect is by honoring and respecting their feelings and beliefs and choosing not to honor them in that way at all. If you really believe that this person would be offended by anything having to do with Samhain, then you don't necessarily have to honor them on Samhain. But if you really want to do something to honor this person, then spend some time thinking about all the possibilities, and maybe you can come up with something that you find appropriate. Thanks for listening, and I hope that gave you some things to think about.